Such person is so arrogant person. Already mentally sick. When sickness comes, why don't you say thank you very much? Thank you very much. And I was wrong. My pain is there. That is, I was wrong. I did something wrong. So I have to change my life. Such person is so arrogant person. Already mentally sick. When sickness comes, why don't you say thank you very much? Thank you very much. And I was wrong. My pain is there. That is, I was wrong. I did something wrong. So I have to change my life. Such person is so arrogant person. Already mentally sick. When sickness comes, why don't you say thank you very much? Thank you very much. And I was wrong. My pain is there. That is, I was wrong. I did something wrong. So I have to change my life. Such person is so arrogant person. Already mentally sick. When sickness comes, why don't you say thank you very much. Thank you very much. And I was wrong. My pain is there. That is, I was wrong.
Osono, an attractive young matron, expresses her grief and loneliness at the unfaithfulness of her husband. A popular Bunraku highlight, this particular scene is considered representative of this classic puppet theatre, both in terms of its narrative content and the artistry displayed by the doll. Bunraku, together with kabuki, is an art form which has been closely associated with the nation's common people over the centuries. Wherein lies the charm of this 300-year-old theatrical art? Bunraku endeavors to give life and soul to an inanimate doll, to express through it a purity of form and beauty that is not possible for a living actor hampered by the limitations of his physical self. In the Japanese theater tradition, the black robe and mask worn here by the doll manipulators signify non-existence. In other words, their wearers are considered to be invisible to the audience. These three men do not speak a single word. Instead, they concentrate on projecting themselves, both body and soul, into the doll, and thus become its living spirit. The narrator, delivering his dynamic recitation to the accompaniment of the three-string Shamisen, describes not only the situation and the scene, but voices all the dialogue as well, entirely by himself. The narrative form is known as joruri, a style of ballad recitation developed centuries ago in Japan. This perfect illusion of life is created through the attainment of complete unity between the narrative presentation and the movements of the dolls. Presently, the scene intensifies in drama. Osono finds her husband's letter, telling of his plans to commit suicide with his mistress. From outside, the couple secretly peer into the house in a silent farewell. Their child, offspring of this illicit union, has been entrusted to the care of the husband's parents. This is an effective portrayal of the pain, sorrow, and despair of a young, forsaken wife, faced with the crumbling of old family relationships in consequence of her husband's unforgivable behavior. The history of puppets in Japan goes back to the distant past. At first, there were groups of itinerant puppeteers. Later, these groups joined hands with the Joruri singers who had gained popularity around the 15th century. This union brought about the creation of Japan's unique doll theater art. This genre painting of nearly 400 years ago depicts the lively plebeian audience that, during the long feudal period in Japanese history, made the puppet theater its major form of amusement. The sights and scenes of that older age have changed. Yet the tradition of the puppet stage remains intact in many of the nation's cities, towns, and villages. More than 100 doll theaters can still be found throughout the country even today. Not far from the swirling waters of the Naruto whirlpool, on the islands of Shikoku and Awaji, local puppet plays are highly popular and a major tourist attraction. In this small harbor town, even high school students participate in traditional puppet plays during their school vacations. Far from the main centers of modern life, in rustic villages and isolated islands, puppet plays of a pre-Bunraku vintage are still performed. On the island of Sado in the Sea of Japan, an almost pure form of this ancient puppet style is preserved. A simple stage in an old temple yard set off by a high curtain. It is a scene just like that in the old genre painting. The narrator is seated behind the curtain and sings the ballad while accompanying himself on the Shamisen. The style of narration, unlike Bunraku's more dramatic Joruri, is in the manner of older Japanese narrative epics. The performers themselves are all local farmers, amateurs in the art, yet highly skilled. The dolls also differ from the Bunraku dolls in that they are each handled by a single manipulator instead of 3. This is a play about the exorcising of an evil spirit. For an intermission feature, a farce is presented, bringing smiles to young and old alike. A young and lively wife begs her aging husband, who is going on a trip to the city, to bring her back as a gift a living, youthful Jizo-san, a popular Buddhist deity, often represented by small stone idols along the roadside. Both the dolls and the costumes are from a fairly early period. The doll head, too, is quite primitive and even grotesque, but has an appealing humor. Of Japan's many theatrical forms, the No drama was the theater of the aristocratic warrior class, whereas the doll theater belonged to the common people. In the doll theater, there never has been a social gulf between the performers and the audience. Throughout this performance, in setting, style, and pace, there is that unhurried charm seldom found in the rush of modern life. Everyone knows that there is no such thing as a living Jizo-san. Everyone, that is, except the simple country husband, who heads for the city and is fooled by a wily merchant into buying a young man for his wife's Jizo-san. These crude and earthy dolls later developed into the much more polished and realistic forms of the Bunraku dolls, befitting the needs of the many fine plays that came to be written. These heads depict characters of the merchant class. These represent members of the warrior class. Other examples of the more than 40 kinds of Bunraku heads include this middle-aged man, strong in personality, but with a touch of melancholy. This is of a man much loved by women. The dauntless face of an intrepid old warrior. The dashing young man about town. An unhappy and lonely woman. A spiteful, middle-aged matron. A fascinating and elaborately adorned geisha. Sometimes a beautiful woman can have a fearful disposition. The pleasant, good-natured features of townspeople. A minor character of the good-for-nothing type. A comical minor character with a movable nose. A comic face that is an imitation of a crab. Solitude and pathos is depicted in this special mask to represent a blinded warrior. There are skilled craftsmen who preserve to this day the demanding art of carving Bunraku doll heads. In order to keep it from being too heavy to manipulate, the doll head is made of such lightweight wood as paulownia or cedar. Through the expert hands of the craftsman, a simple block of wood is transformed into a doll. when the basic details of the eyes and mouth are completed, such movable parts as are required are added, and the head assembled. Then the finish is applied. Thus is a charming maiden born. However, it takes a talented manipulator to give life to these inanimate dolls. A special feature of the female doll is the absence of legs, which are represented by the flowing length of the kimono. Let us take a male doll to see how a Bunraku doll is handled by the three manipulators. The main manipulator handles not only the head, but also the doll's right hand. The second manipulator handles the doll's left hand. The third manipulator handles the doll's feet. The coordinated movements of the three manipulators create the illusion of life. The rehearsal. The stage is arranged in such a manner that the manipulators stand on a lower level than the dolls and are hidden from the waist down. The main manipulator holds the doll at a given height so as to facilitate the third handler's managing of the feet. For this purpose, he wears high clogs. The loud stamping by the foot handler serves to emphasize and heighten the drama and passion of the role being portrayed. The most essential element in handling Bunraku dolls is absolute coordination among the three manipulators. Long years of arduous training are needed before the three handlers can work in perfect unison. In order to become a skilled manipulator, it is said that 10 years are needed to first attain proficiency in handling the feet and 10 additional years in handling the left hand. Backstage, dolls waiting to make their entry line the corridor. Preparing the costume and dressing the doll he is to use is one of the greatest pleasures for the manipulator. He and his doll are tied by a strong bond of affection. To a young manipulator, a doll depicting a young maiden is like a sweetheart. To an older manipulator, she seems more like a beloved granddaughter. The typical gestures of a young girl. Laughter. Shyness. Joy. Anger. Sadness. Here, a skillful portrayal of sewing. The manipulator gives the living action to the dolls, yet without the narrator the image is incomplete, for the narrator is the mainstay of a Bunraku performance. The Bunraku repertoire contains many fine plays, all dating back many centuries. The narrator presents his story in a particularly florid style of dynamic vocalization that derives from old traditional narrative forms. This style has been perfected through the centuries by masters of the Joruri. A lifetime of devotion is required to attain that mastery of presentation which can breathe life into the doll and touch the emotions of the audience. The shamisen is another indispensable element in a Bunraku performance. This special Japanese instrument has a tonal quality which can deeply move the human heart. The most representative plays of Bunraku are undoubtedly those dramas which deal with the human tragedies of the warrior class during the chaotic feudal war period of the 12th century. A scene from a play considered typical of that period. The warrior, Kumagai Naozane, relates how he captured a youthful enemy in combat. The enemy, however, turns out to be the son of a former benefactor. In order to save the life of the youth, Kumagai is forced to sacrifice his own son in the other's stead, in accordance with the harsh code of honor of that day. In further complication, the youth's mother is in residence at Kumagai's household. While relating his story of heroic battle, Kumagai hints to his wife the truth about the death of their own son. The grief of parents who have lost a child, the sadness of lovers kept apart. The masterpieces of Bunraku depict the sufferings and human conflicts during the oppressive feudalistic society of the time. Here is found that element which appeals to the deepest of human emotions. Bunraku might be called the art of dynamics. The sharp tones of the Shamisen supply the dynamic force that draws out the narrator. The narrator's dynamic force in turn transmits its energy through the handlers to the dolls, transforming them into life-endowed creatures. The mother of the enemy youth, believing that Kumagai has killed her son, watches for a chance to avenge his supposed death. Kumagai is to be her victim. The beauty which Bunraku creates is the essence of aesthetic form, achieved through the medium of a doll. A purity that cannot be attained by a mere human actor. In this special characteristic, Bunraku finds its artistic purpose, and through it conveys a charm and a meaning relevant to all ages.